So indicators registry is actually a tool which was developed jointly at the global level with all other clusters. It includes the indicators which are recommended for the Humanitarian Response Plan. In addition to the online version, which I will present to you a bit later, and you have here the link to this online version, we also put the same information in this Excel form in case it's easier for you to navigate there in the Excel than in the online version. So before we go to the indicators, just want to quickly present to you the framework for nutrition cluster information needs and analysis, which you can see here in blue. According to our needs assessment and analysis framework, we separate all the information needs into three big categories. The first one is nutritional status and vulnerability to illness and mortality, which is actually measure of your nutrition status of the population, such as, for example, global acute malnutrition or micronutrient deficiencies or exclusive breastfeeding rate. This is normally measured through the surveys or assessments, and it's measured on like not on a monthly basis, but 6 monthly or yearly basis. Another set of indicators is nutrition resources and services availability, which is capacity mapping of all the services and staff and supplies available. We have not included this category of indicators into our indicators registry because it's not common that you would use these indicators for the humanitarian response plan. However, you should keep in mind this type of information needs, and it can be that in some particular situation you would need to include this as as several monitoring indicators to your HRP. For example, sometimes you would include number of partners trained in assessments, for example, smart assessments. So this would be covered by this category. However, at the global level, currently we are not including this kind of indicators in the set of indicators. The third set of information needs is nutrition system performance indicators, which is what you normally measure through your monthly reporting. For example, admissions, recovery, and so on. So in the indicators registry, we provide you with the suggested indicators for the nutritional status, which is normally outcome indicators for the HRP, and nutrition system performance, which is normally output indicators for HRP. Now I go to show you the indicators. They are presented in the table with a lot of information. However, to navigate, you can do it through the title or through the description. For example, global acute malnutrition, of course, one of our main indicators, and then you have description of what this indicators actually is. Unit of measurement, whether you measure it at individual level or at community level, and so on. Unit description, which is percentage or what is the unit, denominator and numerator, if applicable, of how you measure it. Then what is the possible disaggregation for this indicator. Then there is such a thing as key indicator. Key indicator means that it's a very important indicator and it's likely that it would be included in the HRP. There is also some indicators which are not considered key. Let's say, for example, proportion of children 24-59 months who receive foods from 4 or more food groups. It's not considered a key indicator because normally for infant and young child feeding we would select some other indicators which would be key indicators. However, you can consider, and depending on the situation in the country, maybe this indicator would be most suitable for you to include to the HRP. So it's again, you have to decide on a case-by-case basis whether you choose this indicator or not. Then you have type of indicators, which is basically whether it's baseline, output, outcome, or impact indicator. Response monitoring, whether you can do response monitoring with this indicator. Then if standards, if applicable, it's not always, but for example, you have sphere standards and WHO standards, and then they are referenced here. Threshold. For gum, you would have WHO severity classification, which says that which classify gum according to less than 5%, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and more than 15%. So if this threshold exists, however, sometimes it doesn't. Then you would have guidance on which phases of the response it should be collected. As you know, we now separate everything into 5 phases: the preparedness, and then first phase, which is usually first few days of emergency, second phase up to 2 weeks, and then third phase usually up to few months, and fourth phase onwards. So depending on for when you are developing your humanitarian response plan and for which phases you need your indicator, you can also check guidance on the phases when it should be collected. For example, global acute malnutrition, you can collect it in preparatory phase. You can collect it in the phase 3 and 4, which is like few months from the onset of emergency. However, it's not usually possible to collect it in the phases 1 and 2. Then you would have sometimes general guidance, which is basically some notes on how to collect this indicator, guidance for pre-crisis or baseline if it's different, and then some comments to clarify of how to do these indicators, data sources of how to collect indicator, and also sector cross-tagging, which means if this indicator is also important to other sectors. The same structure is also applicable for the performance monitoring indicators. And you can see all the performance monitoring indicators here, which are also classified by subdomain as for prevention of and management of acute malnutrition, prevention and management of and control of micronutrient deficiencies, and infant and young child feeding. So all the indicators which are in this indicators registry are program indicators for the program interventions. Currently, there are no indicators in the registry to measure other areas, for example, coordination. So, but you have to bear in mind that sometimes for your humanitarian response plan, you would also need these kind of indicators, and you will not be able to find them in this registry because, as I said, it's only program indicators. So now I will go to this link I mentioned on the OCHA website, on the humanitarian response.info, where you have all the same indicators. Let me open it. Okay. Do you see the indicators registry? I hope. Good. So it's already filtered by the nutrition cluster indicators, and you see you have 112 indicators for the nutrition. Whatever filter you select, first you will always have 3 indicators on accountability to affected population that have been decided at the intercluster level and recommended to use by all the clusters for the AEP related monitoring. But then below this you will go to the indicators which I just described. You would have absolutely same information that in the Excel file, nutrition cluster, name of indicator, subdomain, then title of indicator and description. If you click on the title of indicator, you will get to all the description of the information which I just presented to you in the Excel table. So what we recommend when you select the indicators, that you go through the list of indicators we proposing and choose which ones you should use. Also, I want to note that this is just a generic indicators and you can adapt them in your country according to what you think is more suitable. For example, we can have an indicators which is percentage of children admitted, like I don't know, percentage of children recovered and so on. But in your particular situation, maybe you decide that you need to have a number, or there is another reason. For example, you cannot measure percentage of something, you can only measure number, or you think it's more informative and so on. So this list of indicators is just for you to start thinking about what indicators you can select or you should select for your monitoring. Also, I'd like to say here that remember all the indicators you put in your humanitarian response plan monitoring should be SMART, which is specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related. So because these are generic indicators, you will always have to adapt it in a way that it becomes SMART. For example, your indicator on the global acute malnutrition would be global acute malnutrition in, I don't know, in this province in 6 months is kept to pre-crisis level, something like that. So you would always have to ensure that your indicators are very specific and that you can measure them, that they are assignable, so you know who is going to actually measure, achieve this indicator, that they are realistic. You can as a cluster collect this indicator, and this is very important because I saw in many situations that you put all kind of nice indicators but you just cannot report on them, or you cannot monitor them, and then what is the point to select this indicator? For example, you want to put exclusive breastfeeding in children 0 to 6 months. However, not a single partner can measure this indicator, and to build their capacity to measure it would take like more than 6 months, and you cannot measure it in the period which you wanted to measure. So what's the point to put exclusive breastfeeding rate as an indicator if you cannot get this indicator at the end? You maybe think you go through other indicators and maybe you choose another indicator. For example, number of caretakers of children 0 to 6 months who received infant and young child feeding counseling or health education. And of course, all the indicators should be time related, so you know by when you have to achieve this indicator. And I think that's everything I wanted to tell you on the indicators registry. And if you have any questions on this, I'm happy to answer them now.
No, it's okay.
Is everything clear?
Pretty much so, yes.
Okay. Great. So